Alright, we are up under the Suburban, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see, but we have got an issue, and I will try to explain the best that I can. Alright, if you can see the AC compressor right there, we've got an issue with it, and what the issue is it's intermittently not working, and when I come out here, the AC clutch is not engaged. And so I did some troubleshooting, jumpered the pressure switch, still wouldn't engage, and verified it was getting power through the pressure switch. So definitely something wrong there. I swapped the relay with the high beam relay. It's the same part number for the relay for the AC compressor and the high and low beam. And so I just swapped it with the high beam to see if that... I was actually out on the road when it was doing it. We were out camping. And it still was not working. So what I did is I took a plastic... well, it was actually an old strut rod, gas strut, from the rear hatch. And it's got a plastic end on it. And so I got that down there and used that plastic end to bump the face of the clutch, and it engaged. And every time it wouldn't work, the AC would start blowing warm, I'd come out, bump the face of the clutch, and it would engage. And so what we've got, and it would do it hot and cold. So let me explain that a little bit. If it was only doing it when the engine was hot, that might indicate a weak coil on the clutch, that once it got hot it would stop engaging. But it would do it, you could just start the engine up with it completely cold and the clutch would not engage, and you could bump it. So it definitely did not seem to be heat induced. What I think we've got is the clutch is just worn, and there is now too much of an air gap for the coil to be able to engage it. And so what we are going to do is try to take it apart and adjust that air gap. Now I'm hoping I can leave the clutch on, leave the compressor on. I'll have to take the clutch off. And I'm hoping I can leave the compressor on the car, because it's got good... I don't want to open the system up. So let's see what we can do. I think I'm going to start by, I'm going to jack it up, take the passenger side wheel off, and take the inner fender off. What you've got, I'll show you. Man, I'm on the creeper. I don't have it jacked up yet, and it is a tight fit for me to get under here. What you've got is these little push connectors, like this, to get this thing out. And so it's fairly easy. Just take those off, and there might be a few things up top. Looks like one right there in the center of the screen. That's probably holding something on up top. Take those off, and that'll allow us to get in here on the side and give us a little more room to work. I'll also probably remove this bottom little skid plate, and worst case scenario, we may take the fan shroud off to give us more room in the front. But let's start off by taking this inner fender and tire off and see where we go from there. See if that gives us enough room to work in here from the side. Alright, that's about the best I can do for y'all to see. I'm sure they make a special tool to get these off. I've got a screwdriver. It's just a cheapy screwdriver. These cheap ones that you can get like at the dollar store and stuff. They make good, or you buy a box of tools at the garage sale and you got a bunch of cheapy screwdrivers. I hold on to them because they're easy to bend and stuff, and make little special tools like this, which work to get in here to get these things popped out like that. See, this makes a nice little tool. And then I kind of throw stuff in my jack stands. Makes a good spot to put stuff because it doesn't roll out, at least on mine. This one's putting up a little more of a fight. So yeah, I get in on each side of here, pull the center up, and then get under here and pull the whole thing out. There we go. And it is out. So that gives us a much better view. Let me get y'all in here of the AC compressor right there. Now the question is, do we have enough room? There's a nut on the front of here that we got to take off, and then we got to get our puller in. So let me see if we've got enough room. That looks like a transmission cooler line is kind of in the way. I don't know, it's got a little bit of flexibility. We can kind of push it over, I think. The fan clutch may be okay, and I think we can leave the belt and everything on it. We just need to get the outer part of the thing off. And maybe we should measure the air gap before we even start. I'm not sure what the specs are on it, but I can look them up and we'll see if it's out of spec as far as the gap. Because if it's not, then maybe we have some other issue going on. We're about to get rained out, but let's see if we can at least check the gap. So this is 25 thousandths right here. And it is way larger than that. So let me stack a couple. See, we're checking this gap right here. That's the gap that it has to pull up. And so when I was bumping it, I was bumping this plate right here with plastic. You don't want to get something metal in there because you could hit these and damage it. That plastic is soft. So let me stack a couple and we'll check it again. Worked on this just a little bit, straightened them out, and got that in there. And that fits in, after I straightened it out, it fits in there sloppily. So it's at least 40 thousandths. From what I can tell, the spec is supposed to be 20 to 30 thousandths. So it's at least 40. We're gonna check it a little bit more. I've got a better feeler gauge set, but I'm gonna check it, and we'll figure out exactly what it is so that we figure out how much we have to. If there's a spacer in there, which I think there is, we'll figure out how much we need to take off the spacer to get the gap right. We got 50 thousandths right here. Better set of feeler gauges. That is like right on. It just snugly fits in there. So we're at 50 thousandths. We can easily take 20 thousandths off to get it back in spec. That's probably what we'll do. We'll take 20 thousandths I think it's maybe no. Let's do we'll take about 15 thousandths off. We'll put it right in the middle of the spec. We don't want to get too tight. That should be just about right though. So there's I think this is a 10 millimeter. We've got to get this off, and a couple of ways we could do it. We can engage the clutch, jumper the clutch, and have it do it. I've got a, and then we could break it loose. I've got a 3/8 impact air ratchet. I'm gonna see if it'll break it loose, and if it will, that might be the quickest and easiest thing, and I can hold this by hand. If not, we'll probably have to break it loose by hand and engage the clutch and see if it'll hold to break this bolt loose. Got y'all about the best I can get. We're working right in here, and I've got the light on, but it's not showing up real well. So let's see if we can get this thing in here, see if it'll break this loose. Put the socket on first. Put it on here. And we're going to hold the clutch. And look at that. Broke it loose. So we're going to hold on to that bolt, make sure we don't lose it. And let me go, I've got a clutch puller for this thing. Let me go find it. Or I think I do. So from what I can tell, I don't have a puller for it. Now what it did look like, does look like there's threads in there, and this is the bolt that came out, and I grabbed this metric bolt. This is just an extra off of the Mercedes, probably one I pulled off when I got something out of the part off the junkyard or something like that, and this threads onto it. And so I think what we've got is the clutch face has a larger threaded hole on it, and that you can thread a bolt in like this, and it'll bottom out against the nose of the shaft of the compressor, and we can tighten this down and it will pull the clutch off. That's a guess. I think this is a Nipodenso. No, I think it's a Delphi compressor. I'm not positive. I think it's a Delphi. So let me try this. All right, so we're gonna thread this on by hand. All right, that's bottomed out. Let me grab my air ratchet. So that is 10 millimeter. We'll flip this to forward. Now for driving it on, I guess we could just tighten up the nut. Oh, come on. Tighten up the bolt and draw it on. Look at that. You'll see it? So for this one, you don't even need a puller. You just need a bolt. Now, there's probably going to be spacers here, so be real careful. And there's our spacers, or one of them, right there. So we will measure that. If that's 20 thousandths, then we will just put this thing back together. And this clutch face does not look great, but it does have some material left in it, and see, we've got material till we get to the rivets. So we're okay for a little while. like I said, I'm going to measure that spacer. If that's 20 thousandths, then we can just leave that out. It looks like that's the only shim in there. We may not be able to put it in without a shim. So I don't feel another one. But that is just a little washer, so we can easily come up with some other kind of spacer. But let me go measure that. 20 thousandths is probably too much to take out. I probably need to take out about 15 thousandths. But we could easily sand that down. And there's what I was talking about. See, the face of this clutch is threaded. This is a nice design that you don't have to have a puller for this. See, when I was looking at it, I was like, the other ones I've done, they've had a outside ring here that's threaded that you thread a puller into, and then the puller has a center bolt that goes through and it pulls it off. This one just has some threads right there, and it bottoms out against the compressor shaft and just pulls it off. Nice, simple design. And that's the bolt I used. This one I had laying around. Alright, it started to rain, so I moved stuff inside. We're going to measure the gap on this thing. And we are at, it's a thick shim. That's 25 thousandths. It's almost 45 thousandths. Right at 45 thousandths shim. So we need about a 30 thousandths shim. I don't think, yeah, this is just a single shim. I'm trying to make sure it's not too stuck together. I think it is just, yeah, it's just a single shim. Let me look around and see what I have for washers. We might find a washer to put in there instead of this. Worst case scenario, we will see if we can take some off of this one. But yeah, it's just under 45,000. Well, I'm gonna call it 45 thousandths. Guess I should show you what I'm up to. Looked and looked and looked, couldn't find a washer that, the closest I could find was a brass one, and I didn't feel real comfortable with the brass, and just had a hard time finding something this size that wasn't going to require, or that was the right thickness, and it, you know, the inside hole on most of them were too small, and the outside was a little bit smaller, and I decided if I was going to have to shave one down, I'd shave the original one down. We can always add thickness to this if we had to, but we're gonna take some off of this, and then we'll check it. And I think I'm gonna start off with just taking 10 thousandths off of it, even though we probably need to do about 15. I'm just gonna take 10 off, make sure I don't take too much. And if it's even at the higher end of the spec at 10 thousandths, I'm gonna leave it there, because we don't have a lot of clutch material left on that thing. So and it was operating, you know, out of spec for a long time before it finally wore down. So this is what I started off with my thumb, and you can see I've blown out my glove just doing this, but the center of my thumb was going down to the sandpaper, so I was kind of sanding my thumb. So I found this bolt, and it fits just perfectly on the inside, and it does not drag. You know, it doesn't stick far enough through. And so I'm just going along circular motion, and I'll do it like this, and then flip it, do it, flip it, and I just keep flipping it. And that also repositions at a different spot so that the same sides aren't getting the most drag. But a circular motion should keep it pretty even. And You can see how much emery cloth I've used up. It's gotten real, it gets real smooth and it stops taking. I can still use this for something else, but I need some heavy grit to take it off fast. So when the heavier grit wears off, I just scoot on down and work on it, and then I can go backwards to get a finer finish on it. But I mean, it's pretty fine. So let me continue. I've taken about 6 or 7 thousandths off of it. Let me continue on. We'll get about 10 taken off. Can you tell I've taken 10 thousandths off? Probably not, but I've taken 10 thousandths off. Let's go put it on and see. Then we'll measure the gap. All right. So put the spacer in and zipped it back on with my little ratchet wrench, not ratchet wrench, air impact ratchet. So I've got a 25 thousandths right now, and that fits a little tight. Let me try a 20. Alright, let's try 20. A 20 fits in there perfect. 20 is just a little bit loose, and a 25 is a little tight. So I'm gonna say that's good. We're gonna, can't do this one-handed. See if I can prop y'all somewhere. So I just used that bolt to suck it on there. It had no, I almost put blue Loctite on it, but I didn't want to break it off or anything. And they didn't have any on it to begin with, or there was no signs of thread locker on it, so I didn't put any on it. I just used that, put the bolt in, put the spacer in, and slipped the clutch on, and just hand threaded it on, and then just used the little wrench to suck it on up in there. And like I said, we took about 10 thousandths off that spacer, and you can see that that one fits a little loose. The 25 fits snug. Where's the 25? This is a 25. .25 fits a little tighter. Let's see. Got a 35 somewhere. So this is the 30. 30 does not want to go in there. There it goes. But it has to push it open. So it is definitely, it's supposed to be between 20 and 30, and a 30 will not go in there. as soon as it hits that first rib of the clutch, it gets stuck. So between 20 and 30, 30 does not go. So we're gonna leave it there, and you know, we may end up having to revisit this 6 months down the road. Who knows? Maybe, may never have to. That clutch doesn't have a whole lot of material left in it, so it'll probably wear out before I have to readjust the air gap. But hopefully that takes care of our AC issues on here. So on this compressor, we did not need a puller. Some of them you will need a puller. My 2000 GMC, I needed a puller for it, and I don't remember what kind of compressor it had on it. So this one did not need one, and I think this is a Delphi compressor. It's possible maybe the one on my other one was a Denso. I don't know. I really can't remember, but I know that I needed a puller on the 2000 GMC truck. Now this 2000 Chevy Suburban has a different compressor on it and does not need a puller. You just need an 8mm bolt. So depending on which compressor you have, you'll either need an 8mm bolt or you will need a puller. And so you're gonna have to do some, you know, some investigating to see which compressor you have. Look at the end of it and see if you see a spot for a threaded on puller. If you don't see a spot for it, if it's smooth like mine looked, then you probably just need a bolt. So that's fairly simple. I think I'm going to go ahead and just crank it up, and we'll make sure the compressor kicks on, and I might let it run here for a little while before I pull the or before I put the inner fender back on, just to make sure that it is working. Back on. I don't think y'all have to see that. So thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.